a lot of people, rightly so, are talking about COVID and from many different angles, and you're seeing people wanting to discuss the lies and the coercion and the obvious bullshit science to those that are awake. And I say that not to disrespect anybody who's been buying into the narrative coming from mainstream media and the government. It's not for me to judge what other people perceive to be their own truth, but I will say this to you all. We're in a time now where we have to make serious choices about the path that we're taking. And the path that we're given, the paths that we're being given, I should say, the choices we have to make are really simple. From a biblical point of view, I just want to say this to you, that the times that we're in, we're being asked to choose between the path that is wide and the path that is narrow, in simple terms. The wide path is the path that leads to the chaos and the end of humanity as we know it. And haven't we seen signs of that, through the last 18 months? And the narrow path is the righteous path, the one that the Baptist preached of. The path that leads back to what some choose to call God, or what others choose to call infinite wisdom, infinite awareness, higher consciousness, eternal love. The path of righteousness is the narrow path, and there's not many people on that path. In terms of the planet and the population, it's a tiny minority. But we don't need many people to make a difference. People that traverse that narrow path, there doesn't need to be many, because there never was going to be many. The middle ground and the wide path, the mainstream media, the government narrative, the global agenda, the coming New World Order, maybe coming New World Order, the Great Reset, which has been dreamed of by consciousness, or I should say a level of consciousness that hasn't got humanity at its best interest. It's got a desire for humanity which leads to the control that we've called the New World Order for 20 years or more. So why is it important to make that choice? Well, this has always been, and from my personal view, has always been a war on humanity. If you look at my book Orion's Door and you read the chapter on the war on humanity, in the last stages of the book, we're dealing with a level of awareness that wants us to be totally connected to AI and robots, a robotic transhuman society. That world isn't far away. That is the main path, the wide path. That's where it leads, ultimately. It also ties in beautifully with what the millennialists call the final era, the end of days. The messianic period, talked about in different scriptures and ancient texts. A window between 2035 and 2040 where humanity has its direct experience with the Creator. It's talked about in many different texts and scriptures, especially the Kabbalah. You see, that direct experience with the Creator is not a infinite, soulful, spiritual connection to the Creator. It's one that is given to us via our uplink with AI and technology. So, the difference in the two paths, and it's the same with the paths in the Hopi Prophecy, the Hopi Prophecy rock. The path with the beheaded leaders leading to chaos, the path of the mind, the severing of the head, the loss of the mind, or the losing of our minds, the insanity of this world, is clear on the first path, the wide path. The path that leads back to the Creator, in their terms, the righteous path, is the one that is intersected by a small path between the two. And the time is coming when the choices will be made, and those choices between love and fear, and you can see it now. I see so many examples of people that have, let's say, have had the gene therapy, and they've realized that they've been brainwashed and controlled and coerced. The language of the Antichrist in the book of Revelation is simple. It speaks of it as of using three types of language: coercion, lies and manipulation. Haven't we seen lots of that in the last 2 years, especially with all this stuff to do with COVID? So the time is coming, and this good news, the time is coming when the dam symbolically is bursting. Chinks of light are breaking through the thick wall of fear that's we've placed around ourselves over the last 2 years, especially when it comes to this. And in the book of Revelation, it talks about 3 plagues. I mean, no matter what you read into it, and I don't take things literally, I look at things symbolically, we're in a time now where all of this is going to come to a head, where we're going to see through everything all the lies that we've been told by authority and the elite and the governments of the world, or the government of the world, I should say, because there really is only one government. So I just wanted to share that with you at the end of this little day of walking, that there's nothing really to fear, there's nothing to worry about. All this is going to come to an end. It's going to come to an end abruptly, eventually. Not that far in the future now. There's an intervention occurring, and that intervention is our higher selves coming back to us, a level of consciousness, awakening those that are still asleep. People like me and people watching this video have been awake for a long time. We were born awake, just like Jesus said in the Bible, you're born of spirit or you're born of flesh and bone. And the saying being born again is not something to be taken lightly. It's nothing to do with being born into a religious group or cult or faction. It's about your soul, your spirit being born again. In a world of chaos and noise, being born again to the truth of what is really happening to us and where we're really meant to be heading. It's a really powerful thing. And you know what? Healing has to take place through that process as well. There has to be some form of healing, some form of connection with the earth. And I'll leave you with this. The Gnostic understanding of the correction of Sophia, the wisdom of the earth, coupling with the connection to what the Gnostics called, in simple terms, Christ consciousness, the solar logos. There's many different names for it as we're in this period of Christ Mass. You can look at it from an earth point of view, you know, the physical point of view of the journey of the sun amongst the stars, or you can see it as an infusion of levels of consciousness within ourselves as human beings, as true human beings that are connected to these ancient and most powerful, beautiful levels of creation. The earth, the goddess, the wisdom, and the divine consciousness of Christ. So focusing on the heart and the solar plexus takes a form of prominence over focusing on the head and the mind and the brain. That's why we have to go within at this time as well, to be able to seek answers to our own perceptions. And that's what I would do. That's what I'll be doing. Anyway, I just thought I'd say that. Okay, enjoy the rest of the holidays.